Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First of all, I'd like to welcome our newest member, Kylie. If we do the attendance. There, Kevin.
Okay, Brown,
I'm here on Zoom and I'm in Lady Lake, Florida.
And nobody is there influencing your decisions.
That is correct.
All right. Now we're coming.
all right, so Brown, Andres.
Here.
Neiman.
Here.
Underwood.
Here.
Gilman.
Here, and welcome Kevin Enders to the commission. I'm glad to see you here. Right, now we have, before we approve the agenda, we have a blue sheet in front of you, which is an add-on, as well as we're going to add another item D, and we're going to do the manager's salary adjustment. All right. One of the last items of the night. And I would entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, Kevin. I'll second it. Thank you. Kylie?
Andres.
Yes.
Neiman.
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes. Okay, we have an agenda. Does anyone have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda? Hard to imagine, but seeing none, we'll move on to our first public comment.
There's nobody
There's
here.
no public. Okay, and that brings us to item 6A, discussion of the 2021 draft budget. This is the Phil show.
This is the Phil show. I got a bunch of papers in front of you. Yeah. Maybe we can go through, but just as a reminder and an overview on kind of the budget process. Next meeting, I'll have a second budget amendment for 2021, where I kind of went back through very detailed, looked at where things that were shaken out for the year, made some adjustments. And we have a lot of carryover projects, a lot of chip seals and things I'll get into in a little bit that we will keep in the 21 budget. And then when I go through the year-end close process, I will take those projects and move them into 22 in a future budget amendment. So I don't want to count them twice in 21 and 22. So we'll just kind of leave them in 21 until we can roll things forward. So
See what we have left over.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. Same as what we've been doing ever since I, back here. So the first sheet I've given you is pretty much what we adopt at the after the public hearing. It's a very high level, synopsis of all of the detailed line items in our budget. You'll see on taxes, that's our millage. We did get a 4-year renewal. That did reset, so it is a little bit higher than normal. For next year, I just included a 2% increase.
It's like an FTE or something.
It might be a little higher if there's a lot of property turnovers and the uncapping, but to be conservative, 2% is kind of good.
Yeah.
Licenses and permits, we've had a bang out year. We normally was averaging $115,000 a year. We were 175 this year, and it doesn't look like it's going to slow down. So I bumped that up to 150. So that includes all our transportation permits. Land divisions, we had 62 land divisions this year, which is a record. The next highest was in 18, we had 55, and we're still not done with the year yet. So things are moving pretty quick in the county.
A lot of driveway permits.
A lot of driveway permits, a lot of utility work. Federal sources, 21 was really big because we had 3 bridge projects that we didn't have in 22. Basically 22, we get our 400,000 STP rural funds that'll go on Blackman Road. And then we have 330,000 STP urban that'll go to Cedar Run.
On the preliminary for 2022, are we looking at any possibilities of trying to encourage our county overlords
to pass along some of their windfall, their federal windfall, so we can increase that number going into 2022.
That would probably be an accounting appropriation, not.
Well, what I'm saying is, do we have any items that we can say, hey, this would be a really good part of this and it would qualify under the rules or what have you?
I will say that when I last spoke to them, my understanding from talking to them is they have no intention of giving us anything.
Okay.
So, unless you know of somebody that can be persuaded, that was the last I had heard, was they had plans for all of it.
I'll tell you, it's just hard getting hold of other people's money.
Unless you're the Fed, then you just dole it out.
Alrighty, thanks.
MTF revenue, so back in February, they had a consensus revenue estimating conference, and they put together like a 3-year plan for the MTF revenues for the counties, and they showed a 2.8% increase from 21 to 22. It bounces around every month. In fact, this past month, ExxonMobil, it was behind on their payments to the tune of $17 million. So we saw a reduction in MTF for the month when we should have had an increase. So when they collect it, we'll get it back, but it bounces around so much. I just basically took where we're at this year, added 2.8%. And it's the best information we have at this point. So that gets us to about 13.9 million. State maintenance contract, I just pretty much budgeted what they put our new maintenance contract in. They start October 1st and run through September 30th on their budget. But everything we do, we get reimbursed, so it's not a net change to the fund balance. Other than when we go through and true up to the audits, we'll get refunds and collect that money in future years.
Now, I noticed 2022 is lower. Is that because of our taking over?
No, 21, we had about $400,000 of TWA work. So this is non-maintenance work. It doesn't run through our budget, but they give us money to administer projects like, I think on Center Row, we did a bunch of washouts, and we did a big culvert for them in Acton Township. So on 72. So that's just, it's all contracted work. We get the overhead on that work.
Just trying to get a sense of any changes is all.
Yeah. Other state sources. So in 2021, we did have critical bridge funds that ran through that. The wetland bank, we run through that. We did close out the headwaters. I think there's about $360,000 and $400,000 left in that will roll over.
And Kevin, for your information, the wetland account, if you're on top of that, essentially that's pass-through money.
Yeah.
We're the fiduciary for it. So it's there, and it's on both sides of the ledger.
Right, got it.
The state of Michigan takes money off the top, puts it in the wetlands fund, and then we're a Act 51 sponsored agency, so we work with the Michigan Wetland Bank, and kind of got some projects with CRA, and so it's a good program. So now we have mitigation credits on site. If we go in and touch any kind of wetlands that are in the right of way, we can get immediate approval.
Yeah, good.
Economic Development Fund. So we have $117,000 that's going to be used on Blackman Road for Category D. That's your all-season roads in the rural limits. And then every year we get $49,000 in Category E for Forest Road work. So we just have to use that money on roads that loggers use, upgrade. I think we plan on using it on Vance Road, doing some heavy maintenance type work over there next year. Contributions from local units, that's pretty much the brine right now. I do have, again, $500,000 set aside, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later on the cost sharing policy, but
I know this doesn't have to do with money, but do we have feedback from the locals on
Brian?
the Brian?
We had some.
You can include that maybe in our general regular meeting.
Yes, we will be talking about that. We have made some changes already, and we've got several new bidders lined up. So we aren't gonna be restricted to just the one, but we are gonna be pushing to use that higher quality brine, because based on the first year at least, just doing one brine application, we had better results than using the old style brine twice.
Kevin, it was significantly higher, so we had some fallback.
Yeah. We
We
went
did have
from,
3 townships that did a second application.
yeah, and we went from 17 cents a gallon to,
54.
yeah, but, yeah, and it's,
I know it's not budget related.
right, but yeah, it's definitely a discussion point for next week. You'll hear where we're at with that.
Thank you.
And then the other financing sources, we had originally planned to start the Kingsley facility in 21. Well, you know, we're still working through that process. We'll move that over to 2022 once we get firmer numbers on the construction costs, and we'll probably be financing the majority of that project. So the net change to fund balance pretty much be zero at this point. We'll roll that all forward. I think I did have 300,000 in there for land improvements. We thought we were gonna get in and start doing trees and stuff like that, so.
Yeah.
We still have that sitting in fund balance that will roll forwards, give us a head start. Construction projects, 2021 was a pretty big year, although we do have quite a few projects that are gonna carry over. We have about 2.6 million in chip seals between the Millage Funds and the federal aid chip seals. That letting was just, the federal aid was just let out on November 5th, and we were really close. We were with, you know, they were $56,000 higher. We got a new contractor coming into the area to do that, which is always good news. We still have 712,000 for town lines, fresh and shape. We bid that out. They couldn't get to it before the end of the season, so Almers will, I think it was Almers.
One of the first rollouts.
Do that next year. And then we did have 3 signal projects, which included Silver Lake or South Airport and Silver Lake, adding a turn lane to that one as well. So there's like 1.3 million in that unspent projects kind of dedicated for those 3. We did recently award the bid for the other 2 signal projects. The routine winter traffic services, numbers are up just a little bit, you know, putting a little more into the routine maintenance. Some of that's pretty hard. You know, if you have a light winter, you're going to spend more on routine maintenance and vice versa. When I look at the labor, I kind of look at it, you know, outside of where they're spending or charging their exact activities, you know, to keep us within our budget. Equipment charges. I got more detailed on the rest of these pages down here, so maybe we can go to the next page. This is just kind of the rolling 12 months of where our current MTF is, looking the pie chart. The blue is primary funding, the orange is local road funding. We get that from MTF, and then I also kind of split out the urban funds. This will be tweaked a little bit once they go through and update census numbers and then update the urban limits. I don't know if that'll take place in 2022 or if it'll be 2023, but we should be seeing some kind of increase once, you know, they get the numbers updated. I think the county went from, I think we're at 95,000 people now, and we were 80 some before. I think I had noted in here on one of these lines. We had 70,581, so we're up to, I think, 95,000.
Is that all they had for 2010?
This is outside of the city limits.
Oh, just outside of the, okay.
Yeah, I think there's 15,000 in
Okay.
the
I was
city.
gonna say that the number didn't seem right to me, that's all. Got it, all right, thanks.
The next chart. So for the 22 preliminary budget, just kind of a breakout of, you know, where the funding comes from. Obviously, most of our funding is MTF. The millage is a significant portion of our funding at 22% of our total budget. which all that funds are dedicated towards preservation projects. And then when you look at the expenditures, half of our funding is going directly into heavy maintenance type of, or preservation projects here, chip seals, things of that nature, projects in our asset management plan. The next page is just a little historical context on the various categories of revenue and then expenditures. Things can, especially with the federal funding and state funding, things can fluctuate from year to year that are project specific. The one we hang our head on most is the MTF, and was increasing up until 2021 when the 2015 package was fully implemented. So hopefully, it continues to increase with the pricing adjustments that they have planned. But most of that is your registration fees and motor fuel taxes. Expenditures, again, construction projects, that's the biggest wild card based on funding. As additional funding comes in.
Just for my own.
Yeah.
Interest, out of the money, the 50% that we spend on construction projects, how much of that 50% is contracted services and how much of it could be spent like in-house on?
It's almost all contract.
It's almost all contract.
Yeah. We do in-house engineering services for those projects that, that gets charged those heavy maintenance, but most of it's being let out.
Right.
Yeah.
The actual work is all done by that. And then we
We might do ditching ahead of time and maybe some trees and kind of prep things.
Yeah.
That we're better suited for.
But then our field crews go into that routine. So anything that's routine maintenance is effectively operations. Those are the guys that go out and do potholes and ditches and grading.
So the next few pages, these are pretty much the level of detail that we report every month on our financials. And I just kind of, broke out. I did, as I was going through this, I did see I missed the mileage transfer on the 22 budget. There's a lot going on. So I'll fix that before we get to the public hearing. But most of these revenues we kind of already discussed. Shows a little history for the line items. The one thing we did in 21 is we did bond for Acme Township Springbrook SAD. That was $374,000 note. So they'll start making payments next year for the next 15 years to reimburse us on those debt payments. Any questions on the detailed revenues?
No, well, I was just curious with that special assessment district project, is that a rare thing, or that we do, or do we do a lot?
No, we did another one for Acme Township, I think in 2015, maybe. It's not unheard of.
Right.
They just wanted, instead of going through the township, they wanted to use our borrowing ability. Those are probably better rates.
Okay.
I forget what the rate was. It was under 2%.
Okay.
And so a lot of the other townships, when they do it, a lot of them will have the cash.
Right.
They confront it.
Got it.
And they'll find financing of their own. But it's not, we've had other projects that we've done funding for townships. We had a division line between two townships that they each had funding that we dealt with them, and we actually just fronted them for it. And they paid us back instead of dealing with two different bond issues for them. So we do that. That's always with the board approval for any of that.
Yeah.
So, but we do have options for them, and we encourage them because it's still a great way to get roads done, and we don't have to spend the money.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious how many of them we did versus the township doing their own special assessment district?
We don't do any special assessment districts through the road commission. It's all done at the township
Just
level.
the funding, well, the
But
funding,
the
the funding of it, the funding.
yeah, we can come up with funding.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we typically have been working with John Axe for bond counsel.
Yeah.
You know, he works with the county.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
On the expenditures, again, I went through 22, kind of broke it out based on the expenditure types. Labor is anything we write a payroll check for. Materials, payables, that's an AP check when you guys go through the vouchers. Meetings. And then being activity based, we do allocations to kind of respread equipment costs to where the activities that the equipment's being used, and we use a state hourly rate. That's an average across the entire state for various types of equipment. Fringe and overhead, those are costs that we track in activities 513 through 516, and then at the end of the year, we respread those actual expenditures back to where the work was performed. So you'll see net zero on the bottom, and that's because we got credits. So things kind of get, the waters can get kind of muddy when you start looking at all the allocations and things. And one of the last pages I have kind of looks at it outside of those allocations, so you can really see where the cash is hitting, you know, construction versus routine maintenance or admin. What we're really writing checks for. So
On your capital outlay, you still have the Kingsley building.
I got that in 21. We'll
Right.
pick that up.
Pick it up, move it over to
22
budget. Got it.
Once we get better numbers.
Okay.
I guess steel's starting to come down.
Yeah.
But there may be other
Yeah,
cuts, so.
take it where it goes.
So the very last one that I had was the one where I kind of looked at it without any of the allocations. So we can look at all of the revenue and the types of funding source, where it's coming in, if it's millage or federal estate aid, and where is that money being spent? You know, is it on projects? Is it on, you know, maintenance items? And so of the 13.9 million Mtf, we can kind of see where we're spending. That is showing us overspending 1.3 million. That's because I currently had $1.3 million over our targeted 4 million for 21 that I kind of put back into projects and things like that. So in a future meeting, we'll have more detail lists on the projects. All of the millage funds are in its own category. We do have the 2 roundabouts costs, preliminary costs on those, and we're still working on getting costs on some of the other ones, but well, that'll be part of our asset management presentation. But we'll have, you know, about total projects, not counting the rollovers, of about $10.2 million for next year. Admin, you know, we are up a little bit. We did add, you know, another person in admin for IT, and we got a lot more IT related subscriptions and things of that nature. So when you start looking, if you go back to the 19 through the current, you're going to see it trending upwards primarily due to that.
And especially this year, you know, we had a lot of new purchases for equipment and getting that all the computers set up for the GIS and everything. And the fact that we are going to still see recurring costs for maintenance of some of the licenses that we have. So it's going to be a little bit higher, but we definitely see a great savings of.
Speaking of IT, are we any closer to the app, the whole,
Yes, we are. We're very close. We, so CityWorks is kind of we're really trying to get to that's our first priority. So that's gonna be getting the work order management system up and running. Hopefully January is what our target is, to have actual end user training and then roll it out. January.
Well, maybe we make a video or something. And
That's a great idea, because we were thinking about doing that too, because now we have a YouTube channel as well. So
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things where we'll probably send it out for training purposes and then also for just educational on, for general public type, thing. So.
that'd be good PR
Yeah.
done too, I think.
Yeah, and when we're already, even at this early stage here, we've got a lot of data already collected. Larry's had this entire building now has been collected, correct? So everything that's of value in this facility has now been collected, so we can start developing an asset management plan for this facility and tracking work orders and where we have things, and we find that we need to replace windows and such. So, as we start discovering these things and learning, what's the lifespan, we'll be building those asset management plans, and we've got a lot of that data collected.
I know we're
The
building-
roads there's still a lot of tweaks that need to be made, and Larry finds little things every day.
all this investment in IT, we're building our own little Skylink down there.
Yeah. But it's a neat setup. I mean, if you ever want to go downstairs and see it, he's got a lot of computer power down
I'll be
there.
back, I'll start at the road commission.
And it, we are close.
Okay, good.
The problem right now is everybody's gonna be off for the starting after next week. We're gonna take a lot of the crew will be off. So it's tough to schedule anything.
This isn't the overtime season?
Well, they'll be around and they will come in if they're called, but from the 20th through the 3rd, that's a pretty skeleton crew here, so we won't set anything up till.
So our hearing date then?
Is next week with regular
With the regular meeting, okay, all right.
And so as you go through this, if you have any questions about anything, you can call Phil or I about them and we can give you more details. Or if you want to go through something now, we can talk to you more in detail about these.
This is pretty big picture right now, I think, to the point where we're at anyway.
Well, I started with the details
Yeah.
and it rolls up.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and if you want more details.
And
we
Kevin,
got
you have
pages and
an issued unit and email all that, so you're in good shape. Cool. All right.
So we're there, there's still some fine tuning that needs to be done, but we got it to a point where we're pretty comfortable with the numbers. Phil and I have been talking about it. The biggest thing is finalizing this year, carrying forward stuff. So we'll set the budget. And then when we carry it forward, then that next budget amendment you do after this year is closed, we'll move a lot of that money in. And then that will then reflect where we stand. And where did you end up with the fund balance roughly?
Well, I did this preliminary one to get us back to 4 million.
So yeah,
So it was kind of been our target.
Okay.
so we're gonna have a fund balance of about just almost a year's worth of.
We'll carry more than that because we will be under budget in 21. So we'll.
But there are projects that.
But yeah, we will end
have
up,
some commitments and.
yes.
So,
There's a lot of outstanding commitments.
Yeah, right.
And even on the equipment, so I didn't print out the equipment side. But we're gonna budget for 2 pickups next year. We got 3 winter maintenance trucks. So
Do we need to order them last year?
so what our current process is, we ordered in 21 for a 22 cabin chassis
Yeah.
delivery. And then, so next year's budget will be the upfitting for those 3 trucks. And then we're gonna order 3 more next year for 2023. And that should get us kind of caught up with all the old stuff out and everything will be on kind of the newer type of equipment. Then we'll be able to look at the fleet management plan and evaluate how things are operating and do that. So we may have a couple of years where we may not have to replace heavy trucks.
As an FYI, we've actually, in the past, we've literally had pickup trucks with road signs as floorboards.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
They're probably here when I was here last.
Yeah, actually, it might have
The actual
been,
trucks
like, I need
probably.
to tell you.
Yes, and I don't necessarily know that we'll ever be to the point where we don't need trucks. I'm not gonna guarantee that at this point, because we do use them. They get a lot of use. One of the biggest things which will come about as this city works is fully developed and we can start using like the mapping heuristics to see how our routes flow. We are looking at the possibility of making changes to routes, because right now, if someone has to get to their route and they're driving from here all the way out to get to their route, if they're not plowing, it's a waste of time for us. So we are looking at restructuring some routes to have, especially the main primary routes through other areas, being picked up by another truck, so that they're gonna add it and making these more efficient. And at that point, then you may end up with a few routes that are strictly subdivision type routes. And you don't need the gigantic truck with the wing on it
Yeah.
to do subdivisions.
Yeah.
You want a smaller truck so you can make the turns in the cul-de-sac.
So theoretically, anybody who lives close to the road commission is gonna get taken care of pretty well,
The
right?
primaries will be the, yeah, because there's gonna be people leaving on every
Right.
primary
Oh,
route,
yeah,
and they're gonna get hit as we leave. So you're gonna see, but it's gonna make it much more efficient for us, because as it stands now, when a truck leaves here, and let's say they're going down to Green Lake and Grant Township area or somewhere out on the far west side of town, and they're hitting the south end, when they leave, they go out, they're plowing somewhere before they finish their route, they gotta come back here and refill. If we can set it up so that we're having people going out more in fingers type thing and coming back this way, it's gonna save, because they're already gonna be coming back this way to refill.
One of the promises that I really appreciate about the whole city works thing is basically where our assets are being used to their most efficient nature. I mean, and that's why it's worth spending the money in that particular direction. So, I mean, because we get rid of what doesn't work, get rid of the dead wood and make what works even better.
Yeah, and we know we have some inefficiencies in these routes because they were set up on blocks, Say, okay, you're gonna take from this road to this road to this road and back and everything in between. Well, if you've got 5 people that have to cut through there and they can hit all the primaries, then all you need to hit is the subdivision. So, well, that means you can hit subdivisions up from the rest of the routes that were farther out at the same time. So there's a lot of efficiencies that will be built in once we start running through these routes and start seeing what type of equipment is necessary. And we can identify a road and say, for this road, we could get away with a single axle. For this road, we need a double axle, but we definitely don't need a wing. And then for this road, we need the full bore truck. And you start talking, the difference from 200 to 287,000 between these 3 trucks. I mean, that's a big chunk of change that could be saved and make it more efficient at the same time. So
Let's just go around real quick. Carl, do you have any questions for Phil? Just so we can close this.
No, I think Phil did a great job on that. And, as always, Phil does, we're not, I mean, we're getting to crunch time here, but he's always prepared for that. We've had that special meeting right before the end of the thing to do it. So that's fantastic. We're going to be ahead of the game there. And then back on the truck issue, it's going to be nice to be at the point where we maybe don't have to purchase, but we just can't let it slide like it did before, because it's been, oh boy, it's been almost 10 years getting caught up here. So I think we're in fantastic shape as compared to what we were 10 years ago. So that's it.
Thanks, Carl.
you're a little broken up there, Carl.
We lost a little bit of what you said there. The connections just weakened up. He's gonna try to get a better connection.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
It was just the point of the truck. It was just to the point of the trucks caught up now and good to go there, and Phil did a great job. So.
Okay.
All right.
We'll go to Joe?
No, if I have any questions, I'm gonna hold you.
Sounds good.
I'm done, yeah.
All right, thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Yeah, I mean, you do a good job, keep us between the lanes, so to speak, so.
There's a lot of lanes.
Yeah. All right, that brings us to our next item, cost sharing.
Okay.
It's a big deal right here.
Yes, so cost sharing. There are several issues that we had to take into consideration. And for just general knowledge, so everybody's aware, currently, the way it stands is if we are doing a partnership program with the townships, it could be any type of local road. We match 25% to their 75%. And if they add full 5-foot shoulders, right, 5? Then we add 5%, we cover 30%. And that applies across the entire spectrum of roads. Well, as we have reached the point now where our primary road network is getting into the level we feel it needs to be, we now have some additional funds available, and we want to make sure that we're starting to work on some of our local roads. So over the course of the last, probably what's it been, 6 months, maybe 5 months at least, Jason and Bill started, and then Jason and Alan attended one. We've sat down and we've determined what is a good way to be able to start picking up additional roads with road commission funds, and what is a good way to help out the townships and give them a little more flexibility to determine how they're going to manage their own road network. And so part of it is getting an asset management program that's actually workable, as well as identifying these type of roads. And then the next phase is after you are all comfortable with this and we say, yes, that looks like we're good, then we need to start looking at, okay, how do we then roll this out to the townships so that they can see the asset management plan and they can log into our website as a login and they have access to their numbers and they can say, well, if I select this for a crush and shape, how much is it going to cost me? Okay, it's going to cost me this. And then we say, okay, what's the maximum the road commission can match for them? They can start selecting some projects and determining where they want to spend money on the road system within their township. Now, no matter what, we're never going to match more than 50% for them on roads that they select. That's the cutoff where we have this right now. There's multiple reasons behind that, but when you start getting into crush and shape, you're talking about major construction. There's a 50% limit of what you can spend on MTF funds for that type of work. Anything beyond that has to come from other sources. So we would have to then be looking at millage monies. And so what we are looking at is we want them to have some voice in it, but we also understand that there's no way we're ever going to be able to afford all of these roads. So they have to be able to put some money into it too. So what we've broken this down to now, we have our primary network, and can you pull it up for me for the screen? We have our primary network. Then we have what we have basically classified as roads that are functioning as a primary, but our state of Michigan classified as a local.
Like Zimmerman, it's a good example.
Yeah, so zoom out to the whole county there.
Okay. Probably the best example, off the top of my head anyway.
Okay. And you're still not quite out far enough. Okay, so effectively what we've done is we've said, we've got these, what we call stairs and sneakers. These are the primary, or these are roads that are functioning similar to what a primary is, but they're classified as a local. So there's 120 miles there of roads. We already have a primary network that is 255 miles of road, which we do take care of. What we are saying is if it's in those two classifications, based on how we look at it and how asset management says we should be spending money, those are roads that we could potentially pick up and pay for 100% of the cost of the repair to that road with our own funds. Okay, the local traffic roads, which is that 250, it's actually, what did we pay, 272, but we are missing some clarity on it, so it should really be 272. That's 272 miles of road that just simply, they're like this donut hole, as Joe called it. Called the donut hole. They don't fit a high enough need.
Medicare term.
They don't fit a high enough usage that we would be paying 100% for. But it is something that we would then, part of the allocation of funds to the townships, we would allow them to use that money on those type of roads. Subdivisions and seasonals, they cannot use any of our funds on that. We have, in theory, talked about this, that we would take care of all of the design and the soft type costs, not the contracted work costs for subdivision projects. So if we're gonna go in and we're gonna do a special assessment district, we'll take care of anything we don't have to write a check for. If we have to write a check for it to anybody other than an employee, then it's the township's responsibility. So that will drop a little bit potentially on some projects, the cost that they're getting from us, but it cleans it up and it makes it a real neat thing. So if they decide, hey, you know what, we want this to be decorative here when it's done.
Yeah.
Fine, but you're paying for
What
sidewalks.
but just correct me if I'm wrong. What it means though, for somebody who lives in a subdivision, if your road's falling apart, you're gonna probably have to come up with an SAD on its own. And it's not gonna be as beneficial to you as somebody in the subdivision. However, those roads that service that subdivision are gonna be theoretically in a little better shape.
Yes.
Coming in.
Right. And by the law, seasonal roads, that's all you do. You're great.
You're
That's
great.
it. That's it. So we're never gonna spend any major amount of money on a seasonal road. So that's just the way those fall out. So you take out the subdivisions, you take out the seasonals, you've got this 272 miles of roads that townships then need to be looking at on their own. And then we've got our stayers and sneakers. Now, the definition of a stayer, these are roads that function as cut-throughs between two primaries. Same thing for the sneakers. So they both are between two primaries. It's a local road, but it's really functioning as a primary other than in name, because the state of Michigan allows us 33% primary to 66% local. So these are roads that kind of already are functioning as a primary, but they are not they're not classified as a primary. Stayers, most of the traffic are people that live there. So the majority of the traffic going into that sub or into that road are not going as a strict cut through, but it's to get to their house or it's to get to, somebody else's house, but it's not using it as a through traffic. That doesn't mean that people are not using the road as a through traffic. It just says that the majority of the people are staying on that road. The sneakers, it's the opposite. The majority of the people that are using that road are really people that are using it to cut through from one primary to another, to avoid an intersection, to avoid an area, or to take a shortcut to where they're headed. So if we zoom in to, let's pick Garfield or East Bay, one of the two. It's had a pretty good setup, right?
Yeah, we do.
So yeah, so if you look here at Garfield Township, as we've classified these, and some of them get down there into Blair, the orange and black ones are the ones that qualify as our sneakers. And the maize and blue ones there.
I like that. Just says here.
So, yeah, and every time you move the map, it changes what we have there. So
That's
you can
pretty
see.
clever, Larry.
So you've got now you're focusing in on a little more than just Garfield Township, but you've got that change. So what you're seeing there, you've got 3.7 miles of people that are stayers, 22.1 miles of sneakers, 15 miles of road that need to be dealt with on a local traffic issue that could potentially be dollar match from us. And then 55 miles of road, which are subdivision, which are all special assessment and 1 mile of season. So as you move around and you can look at this, we're looking at effectively, as they were to zoom in, if they just have access to their township, you know, they'll get just their numbers as the township. But we can look at it, and whatever we zoom into, it's gonna tell us what the breakdown is across the bottom. And then you've got the bar graph going up there where you can see, okay, what's the majority of the roads? Yes, they're in Garfield Township, but there were other roads in other townships, and you can kind of get an idea of how many of each were in the township of each. So when Larry zooms back out and we're hitting 3 townships here, you can see on that upper legend, you've got your East Bay, your Garfield, and your Long Lake. The majority of it's Garfield, but you do have, you know what, like 12 miles, 13, 15 maybe total of local traffic roads. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is, so the purple is your primary roads. And then the lighter gray is your, you know, your public roads. And then you got your green for your subdivisions, your state trunk lines are your red. And then the throughs that we're all talking about here are, you'll see obviously the checkered or the hashed lines there. The ones that are, as you move around here, you'll see that some have more than others. The other thing, this is kind of, this dashboard's meant for, you know, in-house here, but when we get it out to our townships, we'll be dialing it in directly to their township. So they're only seeing their township. And we can make a dashboard for each township as they move through their asset management process. You have a question, Joe?
No, I'm just mentally looking at something.
Okay.
Where do you want to go? Tell us anywhere you want to go in the county, we'll take you there.
Well, no, I see a stair and a speaker that I've already talked to you about. Should punch that through and make.
Should we what?
Punch it through the North Highway.
Oh.
So, you know, as we break these down, you know, obviously different townships have different numbers. Larry has a spreadsheet which breaks it down for us by each township, and it tells us where we stand on the townships with these local traffic roads, the through roads,
So the totals here, and then I just broke out each individual township as Brad said.
So yeah, so looking at this, that 10.86 out there is the ones that don't fall into actual classification. Those are your local traffic roads. So for Acme Township, we are looking at potentially adding 13.6 miles of road or 14.6 miles of road, which we would consider. And I'm sorry, 10.8. I'm adding the wrong two. My bad. I apologize for that. 10.8 total roads that we would potentially look at as our asset management. They would have 10.86 that they would be talking about too. So, and then you have your local subdivision roads, which are 19 miles, and that's all on the property owners. And then they have 2 miles of seasonal. If they ever want to change something from a seasonal to a standard local road, that's 100% on the cost of somebody other than the road commission. And they have to bring it up to specifications for a regular local road. So it's got to be widened, it's got to be done right, it's got to be paved. We aren't going to be letting them go in and just say, hey, we want to put a little bit of gravel down here and call it good. It has to meet the specifications of a local road.
Same for paving gravel.
Yes, yeah, so none of our funds that we would allocate to the townships would be eligible for use on subdivisions or seasonals. If they wanted to up our likelihood of using one of their sneakers or stairs, and they said, hey, we understand that you guys are gonna eventually potentially be able to get to these, because we don't necessarily know. If the millage dries up, those 120 miles go away. We just focus back on primaries. But you know, if they decide, hey, you know, while we're doing this, we'd like to pick up a half a mile of one of these through local roads that we're talking about, and they are gonna pay half, they can use the money there. But we're expecting that most of them are gonna be looking at these roads that are just standard local traffic roads. Okay, now, looking at that and going back to the map if we could, Larry. Looking out, go out to Union Township, please. Okay, so you're looking at Union Township, okay? They don't have really much at all, because most of the roads aren't paved. And then they have the primary network that does the majority of the travel through their township. So scroll up to the upper end of it. Oops. Okay, so you're not seeing really anything in there that would be picked up by us except for the one little portion of the curve there. But they do have, you know, 30 some miles of local traffic roads. What we would be looking at is setting down, and our first go when we talked with the commissioners, the part of the panel here, is we'd said, we will let you build 3 years plus the current of what our allocation is to the townships. So, for example,
We're gonna allocate money. I think that was missed, but I mean, we're gonna pledge a certain amount each year.
Right.
That's gonna be divvied up between the townships.
right,
Based on the Act 51 formula.
pretty close,
Pretty
yes.
close.
So it's gonna be based on miles of road and population, which is how we get our local monies. So let's say Union Township decides they want to improve a section of road, it's gonna be a gravel upgrade. We're gonna throw out the old formula of gravel roads because, you know, we paid for materials, or they paid for materials, we paid for trucking, and then, you know, so there was all this commingling. Look, we're just gonna say what the total cost is. You're gonna pay for 50, we're gonna pay for 50, up to 50. If there's money available, and we are going to tell you that this was gonna be approximately this much, and it should come in somewhere in that range of expenditures, and then we'll do a gravel road. Now, Union Township has very little money, so if they can't even come up with the match for that, when they reach that 4th year or whatever it ends up being, however we end up doing this, is that money will fall off. They can't accumulate more than a total of 4 years. So when that falls off, it doesn't mean that we're not gonna do something in their township even. It means then that we're gonna put the money where we think it needs to be without input from the township.
Now, here's a question. When you say it falls off, you talk about the oldest year?
Yes, the oldest year falls off.
That just to clarify.
Right. And what we had discussed a couple other options too is, you know, if they are, we'll give them the first 2 and we'll sit them at 2. But if they haven't even come to us to talk to us at that point, do we want to keep accumulating up to 4 years, or do we just say, look, you're at 2 and you stay there till you actually get engaged in the process and start working through the asset management with us? The only issue is because if suddenly at year 4 and we don't have any idea that it's coming, and suddenly 5 townships want to do projects that we really don't know what's coming, for us to put together 5 big projects is, number one, it's hard for engineering to deal with 5 big projects, but 2, we also then have a major amount of outlay capital that needs to happen for that year.
So, on the other hand, okay, if, let's say, 10,000 goes each year into a particular township, and we're talking about matching it to a certain amount, are we not going, if we're gonna assume, and we're gonna say, we're gonna do it 2 years so that they use it, and that we're gonna, so that we don't get caught all at once, should we not also be then banking you know, the additional that we're gonna be helping with to match those back.
Well, I think what we're talking about is engagement from them, because what we don't want to have is suddenly they all come out of the woodwork at the last second and tell us, okay, now it's been 4 years, we want all this money right now, we want to do these projects. And so is there something that we can do to encourage them to just be engaged? I'm not saying they have to, like Union Township, maybe they know they're never going to be able to afford it, but they're talking to us and they're saying, you know, these are areas that we have concerns with. And we know, you know, we'll be able to match X amount, but it's not going to be that much, you know, and then we say, okay, we can work with you doing this and this and whatever it needs to be. Or do we just let that money bank up? Because at that point, then you're talking about adding at least 3 years of whatever allocation you put out there to the fund balance so that we have that money sitting there, and then we're not using that money to repair roads.
Do we ask the townships to give us their priority?
Not yet, that's what this is all about.
Okay, so the engagement would be,
Yeah,
we can do this, but we need your priorities.
right, and we need you to be involved, but right now we have a couple of townships that we have
Well,
not even heard
It
back from.
encourages them to actually, to do something.
And then that way we're not surprised if we've
Well.
got the top 5 or whatever.
Right, well, and that's assuming that that they actually come to us. You know, right now, we have 3 townships that have not responded to any of the phone calls we've made, so.
I know.
I thought the real change in this, though, other than long-term encouragement, is really directing our money to transportation corridors that serve far more than local
Right.
residents,
These
subdivisions.
sneakers.
Really
and
getting
stairs.
away from paving subdivision roads, which right now, anything a township comes to us that's within our budget and their budget of how much the road commission has allocated over the years, anything that somebody comes into the hot button issue can be done. And this is not gonna allow neighborhoods, if you will. This is about more about through corridors
Yeah,
than neighborhoods.
and it might mean that it does put off a subdivision for a year, because then it's how many can these 2 engineers put together a project?
Well,
How many
mostly the
projects?
roads funds in the past few years have been done for subdivision. work.
Yes, we've put up to 25% into subdivision.
But we're moving away from subdivision work to corridor work. I mean, I think that's legit. How much we can allocate to it is, how much do we have, and, okay, we're gonna allocate for the 2 things you mentioned, miles of roads and the population.
And right now, currently what you guys have allocated since this began the process has been $500,000 per year.
And we're gonna be upping that because we're getting to a better place with our primary.
Well, but are we gonna leave it as 500,000 allocated to the townships to deal with local traffic roads and the rest of it goes to our local stairs and sneakers? Or are we gonna up the allocation to a townships? Because if we leave it at 500, do you have that spreadsheet, or do you have that spreadsheet of where the allocations fall?
And before I forget, I wanted to note that you had talked about what the value of the engineering services. So we've been giving 25%, but the value of the engineering services could be up to 20% anyway.
It's gonna be in the 20%.
So they're not really losing that much. They're still getting value from the
Right.
recognition.
Yeah.
You gotta, I mean, when we're talking about talking to the townships, we have to remember those kind of things, because, you know, they're thinking, well, geez, you're taking all of this, you know, all this match away from our subdivisions, but not really. We're still providing value.
Still gonna spend the money, which is where are we spending it?
Well, and then when they decide they wanna do a special assessment, it's about 20% for internal engineering and quality inspection out in the field, so.
Those subdivisions have put such pressure on through roads. I'm thinking of like Sleepy Old Powder Road when I was a kid.
Right.
The
Oh,
subdivision.
yeah.
Now it's basically, it is a through.
It is a through, yeah.
To get over it.
Absolutely.
And there's that one, there's the one, I can't remember the name, from over here, it's all broken up between the subdivisions. The people go across the road, you get the subdivision, and they beat the hell out of the road. So I'm.
Yeah, car trips don't beat up roads like trucks beat up roads, but
They still beat them up.
yeah, it takes a whole lot more cars to beat up road. Powder roads.
I mean, 3 mile,
When the road
3
commission
mile
built it.
Garfield,
they should have just built it.
Hammond, I mean, it's just the pressure, it's terrible.
You know, when we get into doing this or whatever and you know, modifying this, I mean, one of my things, you know, one of the reasons of getting involved with this and kind of my same, it's kind of the same soapbox that I have with the EDC board. You know, it's our roads, especially, you know, the stairs, the sneakers, and even the local traffic roads. You know, those play at, there's an economic development component to those. And so when we fracture our road system all up and give it the power to the townships so much that they play inside their own little boundary and their own little, you know, the own little world, it really fractures what we're trying to do from a regional economic standpoint. I mean, if you zoom back out, like we're a regional area, right? Like everything doesn't exist within Garfield Township and everything doesn't exist in East Bay Township. The people that live in Acme are driving through East Bay to get to Garfield, to go to work, to go shopping, to go like it's all feeding each other. It isn't their own entities unto themselves with their roads, right? There are roads as a road commission, like we have a role to look at our roads from a regional standpoint and how it feeds the whole area, the whole economy as a regional economy. And so I just, you know, again, I'm all getting new and absorbing all of this. Everything that you've said from a cost sharing standpoint seems to make sense and seems to simplify it. You just don't want to disincentivize the townships or give them the ability to look at doing projects piecemeal, to do this road here and this road here and this road here, when really, like you're talking about, I got one road that spans 3 townships. That's a sneaker road that really needs to be taken care of. Those 3 townships, if we're gonna, you know, we're not doing 3 miles of a 15-mile stretch because this township wants to do it, but this township doesn't want to do it, doesn't make
But
it.
to clarify, if you take a look at the stairs and the through road sneakers, one of the parts of this particular plan is that we still have the ability to spend 100% on a project and get something taken care of, needs to be taken care of. The other aspect of it is essentially the townships, they can say, well, this road's getting, you know, it's not on your schedule, but we need to get it done sooner. Then they can participate a little bit more with the matching money, essentially.
And those roads that you're talking about that are through, those aren't like your local traffic roads. Your local traffic roads, effectively, they're not in a subdivision, but they're feeding subdivisions. That's the main thing.
Right.
And those are the ones that we're never gonna have enough money to deal with.
Right, sure.
And they need to decide on their own, okay, where do we need improvements? Because they're getting more of the complaints in their own township about it. We're willing, and at 500,000, what was this, the high to the low contribution?
28 to 54,000.
So,
per township.
so we're talking about, you know, somebody out there is only getting 112,000. Sorry, that was 28.
Yeah.
So they're getting 112,000 over 4 years, and somebody out there is getting 232,000 over that time frame. But the people that are getting more, they've got a lot more miles to deal with. And they also have more resources. So, you know, they're gonna probably, a lot of times, like Chuck, he'd come to us probably, if we said 50% match on that we would do on stairs and sneakers to him, he'd be here next week writing a check for Barney Road.
$1 million.
Barney, yeah, because he wants Barney Road, he wants Frankie Road, and he wants McRae Hill Road fixed. And he said if we would do 50-50, he's ready.
Can we just block off McCray?
That's what I want to do.
Well, he wants to block off Gray Hill, you wanted to block off Bluff Road, so let's go a little bit.
Well, I didn't say I wanted to, I'm just saying it
That was
doesn't make sense.
a loose suggestion. But there are some things that, if the plan comes through, there's things right away, townships want to do that didn't fit our old plans very well.
Mhm.
That we have a new higher level of commitment to some of these roads, and some townships do have the money and take advantage of it. And a lot of people in the county will benefit from those changes right away.
Well, the biggest thing that we are focused on is the fact that we are looking to add to our asset management plan those 120 miles of stairs and sneakers that we are going to manage effectively. Now, if it's the last one on the list, it may never get picked up. I mean, realistically, adding 120 miles is a lot of money to add. So you're talking, over the course of, many, many years, you're talking
It's a part of the
50, $60
progression.
million.
Time passes kind of fast.
Yeah.
Does it?
I thought I was 30 and I'm 64, It went fast.
Well,
The years go fast. So,
I think you know what you said.
yeah. But it,
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I love the setup, and it's really going to, it's got to make it a lot easier on the townships to be able to click on a road, say this, hey, I want to improve this, how much is it going to cost me? I mean, for them,
it'll help with the
everybody has
plan.
real time to look at their assets,
Yeah.
I think is
Acer on
looks-
here.
So I just want to go around. Carl, do you understand what we're talking about? Are we good?
Yeah, I think it's a great plan.
Okay,
I think
You have a good
it's
understanding?
gonna
Good
show
understanding?
them more money.
All right. Now, what do we need to do from here? What decisions do we have to make?
I need to know right now, basically, what level do you want us to start at for the allocation?
Okay, so do we
So
have
if we
to
start
start
at 500,000 right now and leave it at that for a year, that's fine. And if you decide midway through the year, we're gonna change it, that's fine. But if we say 500,000, that's where we'll set it up so that we can produce the policy as well as an example of what you're gonna see next week. Because you'll approve the final thing, but right now I need to know, what do you want me to set allocations to townships?
How long has it been at 500,000?
It was just kind of one of these things. We just said, we're gonna set aside, and a lot of times we never got any partnership
You
projects.
said that 2 years ago, a year ago, 3 years ago.
Budget wise, what are you prepared for? What are we prepared for?
I'd like to try to keep it as consistent as possible. I think this
Just start.
500,000 would be a good start. We need to engage the townships,
Okay.
try to get their plans. Let's get their.
And say, hey, if
thoughts.
it works out really well, we might be upping it.
You know,
I mean,
Give them opportunities to
Like you
maybe
said.
save up for a project, so we can partner in on things
Okay.
and get something done.
Does that give us 500,000 for the sneakers then?
No,
Right away.
that's a whole separate pot of money that we have complete control over, the stairs and the sneakers. So those will be ones that will just be,
local road.
No, but I'm talking about, when we implement this policy, what are we thinking are gonna go to the stairs and sneakers?
at this point,
Yes.
for this year,
Yeah.
nothing. Because we still have a couple more primaries that need to be picked up. But next year, we would start allocating some as we modify the asset management plan. The biggest thing is we are going through a revision of the asset management plan to be submitted to TAMC by October, or is it November next year?
No. I think November's the deadline. but-
Yeah, so we've got to have it in by then, but it's gonna take us a while to add these roads in, get paver ratings or pacer ratings and get stuff taken care of. So the next year, I mean, we're gonna probably be, at least in the million. And it's gonna grow from there as we keep, we still have these few primaries that still need to be picked up. A lot of them are lower priority, so some of the sneakers could end up being higher priority than some of the primaries.
Okay, but you're not prepared to make any changes, an addition for this coming year. It'll be a year off for any budget numbers. that you're thinking of.
Because right now, we already kind of have an idea of where we are gonna be for the primary road network this year. So next year, once we have the okay, we're gonna add that to the asset management program. We're gonna start collecting data. We're gonna start assessing what roads we need to do, and then they'll be ready for next year's project. And then at that point, those roads will then be melded together with the primary roads And they will all be evaluated as the same thing, and we will start chipping away as long as the primary network stays where TAMC wants us to be, then we can keep doing locals. If something happens and we need to dedicate 1 year 100% to primaries to catch up on something that we didn't expect, that's what happens. But we will try and keep adding the money that we can to sneakers and stairs. And I would say, at least in the next year, we could potentially be about $1 million. Isn't that where you were, somewhere in that
You
range?
say next year, starting when?
Starting 2023.
Got it. Okay.
So,
I just
yeah,
gotta get into
because
that.
this year we still have the full budget amount that we have available that needs to go into the primaries. And we've already got some federal aid chip seals plus some other chip seals. There's a lot of routine type maintenance operations with the chip seals and crack seals that need to be done. Plus we have some crush and shapes that still need to be done. So we're gonna try and get as much of the primary network wrapped up yet this year. Next year, we'll still have some.
So where do we want to start? You want
So
to,
do you need the motion?
yeah, make a motion.
I make a motion that we allocate 500,000 for the local road.
Local traffic road
Local traffic road
allocation to township.
to Township. Through the new program there.
Do we have a second?
Support.
No. All right. Any more questions? Carl, you got any questions or anything?
Well, just one thing for Phil. I think, we've had that 500,000 for a couple years here. I don't think we've ever maxed it out, have we, Phil?
No, I've not since I've been here. So we just
No,
gonna.
I didn't think so. So I think that's a good starting number yet, because we've not ever not had funds to do it. So I think that's a good budget number.
For me, and if we're gonna make a push to be more proactive with the townships and give them a tool that gives them the ability to really see quick how much money it would cost to do a project, you might end up getting,
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Alan, anything?
That would be a good thing. That would be a real good thing.
It would,
You know,
right.
I
All
mean,
right. Well, we have a
good
motion.
for the residents of the county.
Okay, so we have a motion of support. Kylie?
Lehman,
Yes.
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Andrus,
Yes.
Stillman.
Yes. Okay,
Now that's,
all right, now
that's one.
that's one, okay?
Now, the second thing is, that I would like, and this is not that you don't need to make a motion. I just want to make sure as we look at these, that you also understand that some of them that are currently listed as stairs may be sneakers, and some of them that are listed as sneakers may be stairs.
Some
'Cause
adjustments.
we looked at them
Yeah.
with the eyes, not with the traffic count.
Got
data. So some of them may flop back and forth, but we are pretty comfortable with the numbers that are out there, that that's where we're gonna be. The question then is, do we put a higher priority in your opinions here? Should we put an added bonus to sneakers over stairs, or do we leave them both equivalent?
I think per need, I mean, you take a look at the condition of the road. I mean, if we can solve something with them, with preservation.
Well, I'm looking at, I think I'm looking more of the main line reconstruct type projects.
Are you thinking like the sneakers are more of a go through?
Yeah, those are the people that are like
Stairs are
using it as a cut through,
Would you-
as opposed to going
So
into
you want to know
this.
if we would want to prioritize?
Yeah, do you have any
Sneakers over
interest in prioritizing
I'm
sneakers
neutral on it.
over stairs or neutral
I
on
think
it?
that becomes more of a, yeah.
It depends on the situation, location, the road.
Okay.
I thought the graph that Larry produced for us a few weeks ago was interesting, because you put how the traffic went on these roads, and then you popped in the number of property owners before, but without some real analytical data like that, you'd look at them, you'd say, these are about equivalents. I'd look at, just because I drive down 633, headed south all the time, I look at Blair Town Hall Road and the one that Lark is on. Norton, the same, and yet you put them in different categories based on how many residents lived on the road.
Right.
But to me, I like the fact that you look at the condition of those and not have us where you say, well, this one is really lousy. We don't, we don't, as commissioners, have to manage that. You have to say to the people in the county, saying, look, we picked these roads because they need to work, and based on the condition of them, you're
Well,
gonna
that makes it
evaluate
easier,
it.
trust me, that makes it easier for us.
And
I just wanna make sure that
And I
they're.
think going forward, we're gonna be talking to the townships anyhow, and it's in terms of priorities, they might have some priorities where they can't necessarily match something yet, but they say, hey, look, if you're looking and you need a little extra emphasis, this road over this road would be better for us. I mean, so I think those things are kind of important. The next thing I think we need to address, so I'm not, what I'm not getting, I think we're a little more neutral.
For your assets.
Yeah. And then it could change. It could change.
Right, that's fine.
The next thing I think we need to do though, and I'd like to work with you on this, is we need to be able to present this to the townships in kind of a, do the roadshow thing.
Well,
Have some bullet points, some easily explainable ways, so we don't have to spend an hour and a half telling the township what's happening, but I mean, we can essentially lay out a couple of examples perhaps. And just this is what's happening, and then
here, and
be
this
ready
is
for the.
right, and this is what we were looking at, we were talking about, and the more I thought about it, the better I think it could be, because there's different needs for different townships. And you're gonna have some people that are very vocal that we should be dedicating money to this type of road versus this type of road and everything else. We were just gonna bring in every township supervisor and give them a little more detail than what we've just given you even. And have them all look at the entire map and understand and kind of pan through the map so that everyone can see it. And then let them be the one to piss off the rest of their neighbors, because we think this is fair. But somebody out there is going to say, well, yeah, but we don't have any sneakers and stairs. So what does it mean to us? You're never going to come into the town.
So let them fight amongst themselves for the scraps.
Well, to understand why we're doing it.
Okay.
So that they all are there and they can express their opinions and everybody can work. And then we're going to need to go into the township specific. And we're gonna have to bring in more than just the supervisors from townships, and we'll have to set up meetings so that we can look at their data specifically, and Larry's gonna have to give them a tutoring on how to use this thing, because otherwise they're gonna be lost. So he's gonna have to be able to sit down with them, and they're gonna need the supervisor and at least one other person from their group. Now, when I was down in Mayfield Township, they said, well, the supervisor can't come because he's not allowed to turn on a computer. He doesn't like computers. So we got two of these people though that want to do it. So, we know kind of where we're at, and we want to make sure we're getting all of them involved when we actually talk specifically about their township. But we need to get a buy-in from all of them and have them be able to talk back and forth between each other to say why they think this doesn't work or why they think this does work. And so we don't end up having 15 meetings or whatever, 14, 13 meetings before we end up realizing that, there's just too many differences of opinion. We need to bring them all together.
The townships used to have association meetings.
Yes, they do.
They still do that?
Yes,
Yeah.
MTA meetings.
Do you think
Once a month.
do you think that'd be a good place to go? I don't know,
Well,
if we meet in person.
I think-
I've been
I
in-
think we would have to almost do it here simply because of
Okay.
our limited, we still are not yet on fiber. So
Okay.
if we were on fiber here, I'd have no issue, but the slowness of loading some of the data might be problematic.
Okay.
But we would change the setup of this room. We would break it down differently and set it up for them to be here, to have space to take notes.
Yeah, they've been
extra
doing it
things.
virtually, and then they've even canceled a couple because of the uptick in.
You're not even be able to use the county building.
Yeah, we'll see, we'll figure something out, but it needs to be someplace that's, we have good connectivity to, but we need to have them be able to sit down and take notes and ask us all the questions. And I think, we're gonna have to meet with somebody from the board before we actually start meeting with them, because we're gonna need at least one commissioner to come with us to show that we're serious. And that the commissioners are aware, and then when we are doing all this, they understand that, this is a whole group decision. It's not me making this decision, it's the board that said, this is where we're at, they agree with us. And this is how we're gonna start dealing with things. And that first meeting is gonna be, I mean, it's a drastic change to them. I mean, it's a totally re-looking at everything. And so when we start looking at this cost share issues, and we put together the policy, which we'll have for you, well, hopefully I'll be able to get it out before Friday. But so it goes in the packet. If not, I'll get it to you Monday. But we'll get you the policy written up of what it's gonna look like, and then we'll have to have an approval of the final policy based on what we have here. And it'll show some
Are
examples.
you gonna supply us with the allocations like we talked about too?
Yes.
The methodology
Yes.
using, we saw the chart, and I think everybody should see that. Okay, what does that mean for Garfield Township or Blair Township or whatever?
The population numbers change
Yeah.
once the census gets
Yeah.
released and.
But you revise that. It's a running
Yeah.
thing. It's not, but you have something now. It was, this is the number, this is your
And so
allocation.
you will receive that in your packet for information, as well as an explanation of how it came about. It's very, very similar to how we're allocated money from the state for local roads, so it's the normal way of distribution. It also then will have for you the dollar amounts, and there were two options that we looked at above and beyond what we are hoping to come to agreement on for the allocations, because when the policy is done, we're gonna have that allocation table in there too, so that that's what we're following. So we'll do that, but you guys will see the other options that we put together as far as ways of distributing money. They didn't change drastically. This ended up being pretty close to the best balance across townships, because it does take major consideration into the miles of road that they have to deal with. I mean, Grant, yeah, they're not getting as much as Garfield. Grant doesn't have many roads. It's mile roads, that's it. So, you know, they don't have a lot of subdivisions to worry about either, so. So there's a lot of that will come with it, and then we'll have an actual write-up. There will be some other minor issues or minor things that are currently on the cost sharing policy that we need to also address. And we will have a discussion on that at the meeting, because there's like, how do we deal with local township requested signs as part of the cost share policy?
Well, it's not currently traffic signals is.
No signals, yeah, so there's a lot of things that we have scattered that we want to consolidate into cost sharing, so that when we start talking about putting up signs for township halls, it's not what we are responsible for, so they have to, we'll install it for them. Yeah, they should be paying for the actual sign, because it's not something that is a regulatory or a warning sign.
Okay, sounds good.
Everybody happy with where we're at?
Yep. Okay, that will bring us to our next item, which is on the blue sheet. Carl, I don't know if you have a copy of the blue sheet sent to you or not.
I did not, but
Okay,
go
well,
ahead. You can read.
Yeah, it's Broomhead timber bridge discussion, Brad.
We're gonna let Wayne handle it.
Okay,
since he's
wait.
here.
Carl, are you okay with me just kind of hanging out here?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, all right,
Yep, you're good.
thank you. We opened up bids for the Broomhead Road Timber Bridge. We had 4 contractors submit bids. AJ's Excavating was the as read and confirmed low bidder at just over 3.2% above the engineer estimate. So we've reviewed through these, and this is for consideration to mull over for next board meeting, where we'll ask you to approve the award contingent upon the following information that we have. So this is a combined effort, if you will, with the Conservation Resource Alliance. And they go to and get grants from numerous different locations, predominantly dealing with water quality and fish passage and items of this nature. So this particular crossing ranked very high for them to replace, because the dual culverts are undersized. very rapid, very fast velocity of water, and it really blocks the migration of fish. It results in a very large plunge pool on the downside of the culverts there as well. So they came to us and asked if we would participate with them if they go through this. So thus far, they've paid 100% for the design of the bridge and put the package together. We did pass through, and we've put this out there to bid. They've got a number of funds, as I say. They've got CRA grants, the Grant Drivers Band as well has got money into this, some 200,000 there. They've asked us to match in kind with engineering services. So for construction engineering, for instance, and so we've got that estimated at 50,000. The CRA's got over 331, about 331,000 into there. So there's a remaining deficit right now in construction, an unfunded amount of 5.9%, which comes up to about $36,000. So that's out there right now. Now CRA is still continuing to look at getting more grants to cover that. The biggest issue is where we're at right now. We're at the end of 2021, and some of these grants will expire if they don't obligate the funds here by the end of the month. So if we don't take any action or we turn it down, some of these funds are going to go away. There's opportunities to get others, but then we get ourselves into a little trap of, are we able to move forward with the project? Does the low bidder back off, go away? Do we rebid? And then we get into the supply chain issue again of ordering a timber bridge and getting that in. All the administrative funding is set and put into play and is fully funded there. So that's kind of the information where we're at. So we're looking at this, and initially we look at, okay, they came to us, this ranks really high for them to replace. For them. It doesn't necessarily rank real high for us, not like the East Duck Lake Road timber bridge, where that was in a active state of failure, where we had already gone out there and had to do several different repairs. The road was, getting underlying soil was getting sucked into the culvert. The road was failing, falling down. The retaining wall was falling over. Okay, that one clearly we were fully into partnering with them. This one here, we're not in that situation, but the culverts are older. They will continue to slowly deteriorate, and in a few years down the road, we'll be on the hook for 100% of all the costs.
What's our timeline on the culvert, and what size culverts are there right now?
They are twin. Are they 8.5 foot? Okay. They're like twin 8.5 foot. They're under a combined 20 foot.
Okay.
Which would classify as a bridge on the federal. So we're at that point where what goes there now will be a bridge.
What are those in contrast to the standard that we would have to meet if we had to replace them? I mean,
so in the future, Eagle they do not permit dual culverts anymore.
So we would have to have a bridge.
So it will be a bridge, no matter when it gets replaced. Any replacement will be a bridge.
And then the bid, AJ's cost, what is that? Somewhere in the 4.5.
So yeah, AJ's bid
16. 616.
Yeah, just pennies under, a couple dollars under 617,000.
We're being asked for 5%.
So we are, yeah,
Yeah, 36,000 plus 50,000 in kind.
No, we had 50,000 cash plus 50,000.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That was expensive. So the question is, are we gonna do some bridge building with the CRA?
right.
Because
So-
they just saved us how much money on Duck Lake Road?
Between Duck Lake Road and even this structure here. So in a few years, we would be at this 100% of our own funds, or, you know, because it's not a bridge, we can't go to the local bridge program.
Well, this is a better deal for us than Duck Lake
So-
Road. I mean, the way it was first presented to us, I don't know if you paid attention, but Carl, you remember, when they first brought Duck Lake Road to us, we were gonna carry a big part of it, and then
Correct.
we kind of said no, and they came back and got a lot more covered, if I recall correctly. So,
I think you're right. And then I just got a quick question for Wayne here too. With this timber bridge, what's the life expectancy of this versus if in fact we're even able to do culverts, which we're not, but I'm gonna assume that this has probably got about a 50-year life?
Yeah, the timber bridges are in that 50 plus year life. What really helps extend the life of a timber bridge is keeping that surface sealed up, which we're doing a much better job now, and we want to continue with that. So, you know, going on out there and making sure that asphalt surface remains chip sealed and sealed up, crack seals on that. And those timbers underneath, you know, I mean, they don't use a creosote anymore. It's a copper or naphthate or something to that effect. But yeah, they have a very good long life to them.
Okay, well, I don't think we're gonna get a bridge any cheaper.
No,
well, somebody wants to make a motion.
You want a motion from us now to?
But we wanted to present this as information to you, and we weren't actually, you know, seeking a board action from you.
now if you are comfortable, we'll take
You can
it.
get it from me if you want a approval for that. I think it's a great use of money.
One question.
We are in a special meeting, so it works.
So 50,000 in kind, and then you said there was another 50,000?
Yeah, so when we initially discussed discussions, we wanted to contribute some in-kind services, but we also had 50,000 hard cash.
So it'd be
So it'd be
136,000.
136 then, yeah.
Another
six.
fund.
But they are still also looking for additional funding sources and additional grants. So that 36,000 may be reduced beyond,
But once we approve that, do they
you know, they're gonna still keep.
Be contingent upon.
Yeah.
funding.
continuing? Okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, so the motion you make has to be this amount contingent upon approval of the grants and any others that can be found. And more or less.
That's my
So,
motion.
no, we
More or
were
less
we
is
were
a 5%.
capping our contribution equipment more or less on that, because we got stuck on these stuff.
But we still have to make, we're still probably gonna end up having to make some payments, correct?
We were, when we.
And then it'll be like pass-through payments?
50,000.
But are we gonna make the pass-through payments?
Yeah, we would be the
So
agency.
we still need to make, they still need to, I wanna make sure they're approving us to make the total payments. And that, but it's gonna top out where we are at.
Just last question. Those are big enough and the current's going fast enough. We don't have any beaver problems out there or anything.
Not in that area. no.
All right, because those things have been plaguing us in the last, I'm telling you.
No, but we did, the people that were out trapping take 4 of them out,
Good, good.
so.
I make a motion, what you said. I want to approve the Timber Ridge.
The timber bridge.
Bridge project at Broomhead Road for $616,000
$939.
$939, more or less,
Contingent on,
the grant awards and whatever we have, and the
and the potential of additional grants.
But we know that we'll cover the additional if they can't get it.
Is that support from Carl?
Yeah, I'll support that.
Okay. Alan and Carl, any further discussion? All right, Kylie.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Hendricks,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes. All right.
Now, it's not even on the agenda for next week.
Well, no, I mean, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah, we were, the only reason why we weren't sure is because those funds, we need to get locked in and we'd know more next week for what the grants are gonna be. That's the only reason why we were gonna just give it to you as information.
That brings us to our last item, and as I mentioned earlier, I probably should have talked to Phil where he could put the additional money into the budget from Brad's salary adjustment. But
I thought you said it was a reduction.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We're gonna tier that.
So anyhow,
90%.
I think we were all satisfied with his performance, clearly, and I think you know, each year we need to assess the we need to reassess what we're paying our manager and whether or not it's appropriate and in line with what is appropriate and what perhaps is out there as well. And I know that last year we had talked about, of course, nobody was here other than Carl and I, you know, but we briefly talked about taking a look at comparables, and I think we kind of fell short on that because we did not do that. So I think that it should probably be a little more than your standard cost of living, and especially right now with the wage wars and the inflationary aspects. And frankly, he's done a good job for us. So if anybody has any thoughts,
I'll pipe in, I guess, if that's all right. And to Jason's point, we did make that comment. We understood that Brad was underpaid based on other salaries in this field. And I'm gonna throw a number out there here right now, I guess, at least for discussion in that. But I think if we would bump him 8,000, I think that's just, we're gonna get closer to where he should be. I don't necessarily know that we're in the industry where it should be, but I think we're getting a lot closer, I think. And I think he's earned it. I think you look at the performance review that we had, you know, it was all very positive. We all have things to work on, but I think Brad's done a great job. I think he stayed ahead of any issues that we've had. And the last couple of years, as we all know, has been trying, and I think we've all done a very good job. And I think Brad is, you know, a lot more time dedicated away from maybe some of the stuff that we look as priorities, but I think he's maintained that juggling act to keep everything moving forward. So I'm just gonna throw that 8,000 out there, and I guess if anybody wants to pipe in, that would be fine.
okay, so that's a motion to increase the salary by 8,000. What's the current right now?
101.
101. Okay, all right. So that's a motion to increase it by 8,000 by Carl. Is there any support for that?
Sure, I'll support that.
Okay, Alan? So,
It's all right, my phone's dead.
That's okay.
Percentage.
well, that 101 is rough.
It's about 8%.
It's just a little under 8%. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, we can go by.
Can I ask,
absolute
what did you raise, Brad, what? 5,000 was what you did last year?
Yeah.
That would be, to me, minimally based on what we have now.
No,
I think that would be potentially too low. I'm well satisfied with the job Brad has done with what I know about that. I think he's done great.
so you're seconding the,
I seconded the 8,000, yeah, and I seconded it, and now we can have further discussion, right?
right.
My point is, I asked what he had last year, that was 5,000.
Kevin, and with all your experience at the board, have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, they got things to say on other things. This one, I don't have much to. Don't have much to. Still not really sure.
I don't know, I was just rounded off at 110 as far as I can call it good. But it's fine for me.
All right, well, I think 8 is a good number. It's a good increase. I don't think it's overly extravagant for sure. But I think it gets us closer to where he should be. And it's better than a pay cut.
Yeah.
He does like working here.
Yeah.
Well,
I
wait a minute, now, hold on. The view of the Friday.
I am the first one to say, I do love working here.
I
So
was
you're
gonna say, he was telling me he worked for half the amount.
No, I never said that.
But,
But I do love working.
But in
here.
all
And I think, right now I look forward to staying here for quite a while because I think we have a very good mix of commissioners on the board with different varying experiences that are gonna make it a lot easier moving forward to really start looking at some of the bigger picture items.
I would say make it 10, but we just spent money on a bridge potentially. So, no, I think it's a fair amount and I'm gonna support it, so.
did you have something else you wanted to say about it?
No,
Okay.
I think it's good. It's been a good year. You've handled a lot of garbage that's been thrown our way. And frankly, I've seen the amount of time you spent dealing with a lot of our constituent issues. I don't know if you've had to have them reply to some of your concerned constituents, but I get them and sometimes I can pass them along and he's actually been right there and he'll write a Bible of things just to answer so that people are clear, understanding clearly what's going on around them. So I think it's a good place, and then we can again look at it again next year and see where we're at, make sure that we're doing it right.
Call the question.
Okay, so I will call the question.
Andres,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes, all right. Thank you, Frank.
Wow. We have no public again.
Okay, yeah, that brings us to.
Motion to adjourn. Used to be him.
Yeah.
Since he's moved, we're adjourned.
Call for roll.